Order the regular school board meeting for January 11th for the Madison Central School District. We're minus Mr. Brooks tonight, so Mr. Schaefer will be the one who's recording the members present or absent. We do have a quorum this evening, and before we do the Pledge of Allegiance, we have a large number of thank yous we received from staff regarding the Christmas one-time allocation of the gift certificates or the chamber dollars. And so they're right now with Jenny. We'll just kind of circulate those through. We're very, very well received, and I would add that very well deserved to be able to do that also. So at this point in time, if you could all stand, we'll pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we do have one adjustment to the agenda, and that one adjustment to the agenda we'll add is item 16.5, and that would be the fact that we need to consider acceptance of the Clean Diesel Grant. And that amount was $20,600, and to be done during 16-17 school years. So we will have to take formal action to consider acceptance of that grant. Other than that, I believe we're set with the agenda as was provided, so I would entertain a motion to accept the amended agenda.
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Moore. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Haig. Further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of the amended agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Declare that our agenda is approved. Next we go on to item number 6, which is our consent items. First of those consent items is approval of our minutes from the December 14th meeting. Then we also, Sean and myself and Ryan went through the bills. I think everything looked in order there. So we have those items. And then number 8 is all of our financials, and we all have had an opportunity to view those. And then on to item number 9, Mr. Schaefer, I'll relent to you on those.
Excellent. We have consider a request for early retirement here from Lisa Lee. She wants to convey to the board that she's enjoyed working with the students and staff of Madison Central since 1995, and thank you for the opportunity to serve the students and community in Madison Central School District. And Catherine Satter also had submitted her letter requesting early retirement. She too has enjoyed working with the students and staff of Madison Central since 1998. And thanks you for the opportunity to serve the students and community in Madison Central School District. So 2 retirees. And then we are hiring Melody Gross as a high school paraprofessional. Actually did so for the second semester, replaced Zach Ruiz as a para in professional care and special ed, $10.10 per hour. And I recommend that you take action to approve those.
Okay, so for our consent items, a recommendation from the administration for the approval of the personnel actions, number 9, and then we've already discussed items 7 and 8. Anyone wish to make a motion relative to the consent items?
Make a motion to approve the consent items 7 through 9.
Okay, Mrs. Thompson moves we approve those consent items 7 through 9. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Moore. Further discussion? I would just like to go on public record of thanking both Mrs. Lee and Mrs. Satter for their years of dedication to the Madison students. I believe both of their times were at the elementary school, where Mrs. Lee actually, if I remember correctly, started at the Colony School and then moved in. So congratulations to them, and wish them well as they move on to another chapter in their lives. Any further discussion on the consent items? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of consent items 7 through 9 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Declare that that motion is passed. Hearing of delegations, Miss Weavers, come on down.
Thank you. I wanted to first thank the board on behalf of Madison Education Association for the $100 that you gave to all of the staff. That was very, very appreciative. So thank you very much for that. And then I also did want to share with the board that we are wanting to bargain with the board for the 2016-17 negotiated agreement, and hopefully a 2017-18 if you are willing to do another 2-year contract.
Okay.
We would so look at that option also.
So what we'll probably do, Dawn, is we'll simply understand that we've acknowledged that you have made
Yep.
that request, and then we'll take formal action in our February meeting to recognize the MEA as that formal bargaining unit which we'll be working with.
Very good.
Okay?
Thank you.
We appreciate that.
Thank you. Put that down, Mr. Schaefer. Anyone else wish to address the board for the public portion? Hearing none, on to administrators' report. Mr. Schaefer, that would be you
we'll
directing.
We're going to start with elementary first.
I was just going to report that over the Christmas break on December 29, we had 18 staff members put in a half-day professional development. They were compensated by the district, but they became CPR and AV certified,
Wow.
which is, wonderful for our students, staff, and everybody in the community because of the number of people who come in and out of our buildings. It's very important for us to be certified in those areas, but not required, so it's something that they do on their own goodwill, and they're telling us that they'd be willing to respond to any kind of emergency we'd have with medically fragile kids or community members who may come in and out of our building. So I appreciate that and re-up my certification. And there was a few new pieces to it, but it was well attended and I appreciate it. And the other item I would have is I'd also like to echo my appreciation to Mrs. Lee and Mrs. Satter. They'll leave rather large holes in my building next year, which I'm sure we'll work hard to fill.
That's right.
Thank you.
Paula?
Yes, I'm just here with my numbers report. We did our December 1st child count for special ed students. We had 168 students on IEPs. And it has increased by 11 students from last December 1st. 11 of those students are from our private schools within our district. And that has increased by 3 students from last year. And we have just one student who is a prolonged assistant student, child. She is in our Birch of 3 program, but qualified for prolonged assistance. 504s are students with disabilities that do not need specialized instruction, so they are not considered special ed. There are 7 of those students, and I have 2 more meetings this month for 2 more going on 504s, and we have 12 healthcare plans in our district. And most of those are for allergies, but they also cover our students who have diabetes. That's our paperwork.
Thank you.
Dr. Cook, do you have anything in addition to your report? Okay, thank you. In regards to Adam and Lori Christensen are over to the Coleman Egan School Board meeting tonight at this time, presenting to them on our career and tech education opportunities and the grant, and we're exploring the possibilities of sharing with us. We'll see how that goes. We have also made arrangements for Beth Graff from Madison Regional Health to give our staff, both at the elementary site and middle school, high school, some training in diabetic training. We feel that's imperative that we do that so that to meet the needs of the increasing numbers of students in our district with diabetes. And when you have a child, or if you know of a family that's experienced this, that diagnosis is pretty scary, and it's a challenge to work with, and it takes a lot of communication and coordination between the family and the staff. We're hoping to increase our proficiency along those lines. We have some new LED lights installed in the north parking lot. I don't know if you've noticed that or not. Hopefully that has improved upon a fairly dark situation out there. And I'm not saying it's all done. I'm just saying that it's better than it was. I don't know exactly the disposition of the light, but received word that the new lighted sign would be being installed at the corner of 9th and 81, and it is there now. Okay, they had a little trouble with the soft soil and et cetera, but it is there and it's lit. And
I don't know if it's lit, but we noticed it this morning.
okay, good. So it is there. So been a while. That was Paul Lambert and other members of the leadership Madison group that were behind that, and so that was a long project, but a worthy one because it'd be nice to have it there, helping direct people. Legislative session, of course, starts tomorrow. That will be, I think, a 40-day session. It'll be an interesting one, and of course, education has been advertised as being one of the major topics there, but there will be many topics, and they're all considered major by somebody. Okay, we talked about, or we will talk about the clean diesel grant. I guess that's probably about it from my perspective at this time. I will, of course, without Mr. Brooks, the business manager here, I will be talking with you more as the agenda goes on. That'll be it. Thank you.
Any further questions, comments on the administrator's report? Then that takes us on to number 12, Julie, just in time.
Should I come up here?
Yep, come on up if you
We
would.
never been to school board meeting.
Well, you must have been a good girl then.
Yes. Well, thank you for having me here tonight. I'm just going to give you a little bit of an update on the English as a second language program. About 2 years ago, everybody knows there was a little bit of a shortage in the workforce, and everybody was asking the question where our employees are going to come from. And we want to attract new people to our community, and we've attracted some diverse people. And as you know, not everyone can speak English. We predominantly work with manufacturers in my business, and so that's where my office gets involved. About a little over a year ago, several offices that are like mine, but are bigger than my office, hired another person as a workforce coordinator. And what they're doing is ESL, they're going into the school, they're working with internships. If the school doesn't have a CTE program, they're working on that. And so they're doing a variety of things. I just didn't feel like we could justify a third person. So I kind of just been watching those offices, and then when they started doing more of ESL, I thought, well, we'll take a look at that. So I reached out to the different communities, Huron and Mitchell that have really strong ESL programs. And then I contacted Jim Balzer from the Department of Labor, and then Janelle from the elementary school, and J.C. Fry from DSU, and then Sandy from the Career Learning Center. We got together and we formed our own little board and decided we should kick off some classes. And so we put registration forms out there and didn't even have any instructors. And thank goodness Annalisa Brown came forward. And then we were so fortunate to have Alicia Persichetti, and then Annalisa's dad, Greg Hansen, and then Margarita. We've just had some great people volunteer. And some of them are volunteers and some of them get paid. And thank you to the school board for letting us use, we thought we were going to use one classroom, and then we decided we needed to provide childcare, so then we're using 2 classrooms. And then when we got into the first night of class, we realized that their skills were so diverse. Some couldn't even say their name, and some could say a little bit more than that. And so we needed to split the classes up. So now we're using 3 classrooms just in the hall. And this is our 3rd session, and it starts tonight, and we're doing it 3 hours a week, so from 6 to 7:30 on Mondays and Thursdays. And we started out, we didn't have any idea how many we would have, and we had about 20 come the first night. About the second night, we had about 26. And it's kind of fluctuated because some of them work shifts, and so then they can't always come. Some of them now get off at 6:30, and so then they'll walk in at a little bit late. And so we're going to take a vote tonight to see if this is really the time they really want to start or not. But it's been great. We need to pay most of the instructors. The child care is usually volunteer. My office belongs to a group called Advantage South Dakota, so I sought some money from them. I figured it would cost about $14,000 for a year to run this program. That's just really teachers' fees and curriculum. And they said they would give us half of the money if I could come up with the other half. So we got $7,000 from them, we got $2,500 from United Way, just kind of as a one-time deal. Our office was putting in some money, and then we're just charging a very small fee of $25 as a registration fee, just because we want them to come. Most of the employers are paying that fee, and there's hardly been anybody who's had to pay for it themselves. So it's been very good. The students are very excited, they're very eager.
they're very shy and don't want to really, they don't want to talk to us because they don't want to make a mistake and not pronounce the word correctly. So that's why they kind of stay to themselves. But it's been good, and I think Janelle, if she's still here, will vouch for it, that even now if you see them in the grocery store, they'll make eye contact, they'll try to say hi. Wouldn't you agree?
I totally agree, and I would first of all thank you for spearheading that, but I think the parents that I work with are a lot more comfortable to approach and to call the school, even if they're very brief conversations. It's made a huge difference because I think they feel more welcome, and they have, you know, even the very basics of needing us to tell them my child is sick. They won't be in school today, or asking about information, and it's been wonderful.
And they've done a variety, you know, they've worked on basic words, obviously depending on the classes, but they did mock phone calls of calling the clinic, of calling the hospital, of calling the school, you know, what do you say, you know, my child is sick, and, you know, so it's been really good. So there's a lot of reasons why they don't attend, and I think we've just scratched the surface. I've been working with some of the employers and trying to get the people to have the courage to come, because it is very scary for them. It's easier to go to work and just, you know, speak to your own group instead of going to class, but it's going well. So thank you for letting us use the classrooms here. You know, somebody is always willing to unlock them, and it's been very good. So you're definitely making a difference in our community, so thank you.
Thank you for spearheading.
So will a lot of the people in the first semester continue into the second?
They did. We actually had, we did an 8-week class, and they wanted to keep going, so we did another 5 weeks, and they kept going, and then now, so this is really actually our third. So, and really, we've had some who truly could not say their name
Sure.
when they walked in, and now they can, you know, sort of speak. They play some games. I mean, they really do mix it up and try a variety of things. It's been interesting because so many of them can't read or write in their own language, and so even to learn to read, even like if you're doing the clock and you put O-N-E on the board, they can't, and then you put it in Spanish, they can't read Spanish, so for them it's so hard to comprehend English. But we keep trying to tell them that even if they come and they glean a few words, it's all worth it. So.
Very good. Thank you for the report and the update.
And if you want to come to class anytime or peek in, then you're more than welcome to. We might put you to work.
That will happen.
Maybe we learned some Spanish.
Yeah, well, I don't speak any. So, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
Appreciate it.
Item number 13 is established as April 12th, 2016, the annual school district election date. And as the city commission acted last week, we'd work to combine that as we have in the past with the city of Madison. So I guess at this point in time, I would entertain a motion that we would establish our election date.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Thompson. Is there a second? Second. Second by Mr. Haig. Further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor then of setting our election date for the school board for the Madison Central School District being April 12th, 2016, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Declare that that has passed. On to item number 14, consider approval to advertise and seek bids for the high school roof section. Mr. Brooks, pro tem, Mr. Schaefer, that one's yours.
Well, I want to pass this over to you, or around, I guess. I don't know if Mitch would do it this way or not, but I'm going to. And, you know, we have 3 sections that we're talking about as the primary thing. And the document that I wrote it on, I didn't bring along with me. But it is 3 sections that they would access from the north side of the building, and there's 1 section that will be alternate. And the reason that we do it that way is that we want to make sure that they can access the roofs from the north side of the building, not the south side. And that, that they aren't going to be accessing the roofs on over the top of a newly installed section of roofing. Okay? excuse me. And I know it's section C and F1 and F, with I being an alternate bid. So we're looking at C, we're looking at F1, we're looking at F, and we're looking at I as the alternate bid. And it's an interesting thing, because these roofs that we are replacing are roofs that have been, for example, replaced in like 2002, but they were short-lived roof systems. And the ones we're putting on are 30-year roofs with a guarantee. And it's a different style of roof compared to the old days. And so, I mean, it's a much better roof system than what is currently in place on these areas. And we worked very closely with a vendor who has been working with us now for several years. And I believe that this roof system is so much better than the roof system of several years past. Nothing worse than a flat roof in South Dakota, and this weather that we're having right now is an illustration and an emphasis of why you shouldn't have flat roofs. Because when snow builds up on the roof and then it warms up to 30 degrees like it might on Thursday, and it starts thinking about maybe melting, and it just kind of just crusts up and sits there and pools and freezes in drains and does amazing things, and damage potential is there. The roofs that we're putting on are of a different ballast type system. They're not held down by those 2-inch stones that are set up there, are laid up there over the top of the membrane. And they also have new insulation underneath them that increases the R factor, and they all drain toward the drain in the roof system, in the system that comes out, into our storm sewers. And those storm sewers used to all come out above ground, but through the modernization project of the high school building, we put them all underground into the city's storm sewer system. So that has helped with runoff as well. And what we're asking the board to do is actually just give us permission to advertise and seek proposals for the middle school, or excuse me, to seek bids for the high school roof section. And then we'll bring it back to you for final approval later on. So I put a little asterisk here by C, F1, F, and I, and you can just kind of get a look at that. And that is a copy of what has become our reference point for the roofs of the high school building only. And we have a document like that for all buildings.
And again, the document that we have the link for is the actual bid advertisement that would go out to the vendors on there. So I'm going to wait to see the document, or do you want to go ahead and proceed? Okay. I guess I would entertain a motion then that we go ahead and advertise and seek bids for those designated sections of the high school roof.
One question.
Yes.
Why is I an alternate?
And keep some money.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But it's still, it's an old roof, and we're going to access that over that top of that section, regardless. And what they typically do, if that is not they probably do it anyhow, they lay plywood out across that section because there's a lot of traffic on that road.
So moved by Mr. Moore. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Miller. Any further questions or discussion on the seeking of bids and advertising for those bids on the high school roof section? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Mr. Schaefer, you're up again. Contract amendment to the broadband services.
We're asking the board to consider a contract amendment for broadband services, and what this amounts to is, in years past, we brought this, I can remember bringing this once in my 9 years anyhow at least, is Sioux Valley has worked with many school districts across the state and other agencies, including DSU, for the access to the broadband that's available. Well, Speed Connect is moving in, and Sioux Valley is getting out, so to speak. This is going on statewide, so they've met with probably every school district and university and et cetera. And they have proposals and contracts that some have been signed and some are to be signed probably in settings like tonight. But they put together a 30-year agreement with a monetary award of $350 per month. And it's for our school K-12 systems are set up in a 5-year renewal because they won't allow us to do a 30-year agreement, so we'll do a 5-year renewal. And also in our deal, we have a $1,500 scholarship per year. So that's significantly more than what we've had in the past. And you know, this thing is really of limited value to the school district because we have no need for it, no services available through it, et cetera. So it would be my recommendation that the board approve the contract amendment for this broadband service and transfer that from Sioux Valley to Speed Connect.
A recommendation from the administration to approve a contract change. It'll be a 5-year contract, renewable after 5 years for the 30-year agreement. Just to be clear, that $350 is money the district receives and the $1,500 is money that the district would receive for scholarships. It's not money we're paying. But this is part of a long-standing federal agreement with providers of providing services back to school districts and things. So, recommendation is that we approve that contract amendment. I have a motion to that effect.
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Miller. Mr. Hague has the second. Further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of the contract amendment on the broadband services, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Declare that motion has passed. Mr. Schaefer, again, number 16.
All right, in item 16, we're asking the board to consider approval allowing us to advertise and seek proposals for the middle school gym bleacher project. And what this is involving is the continuation of the updating of the middle school gym. Last year, you remember, last summer we had it painted, added the lighting upgraded in there, and you go in there now and you know it's a drastic difference from what we had before. Well, the next phase of that includes a gym, in that gym is the next phase is bleachers. And we're having discussions about the bleachers. We know that we want to change them out. We may have a little bit different structure in there once the final decision is made. But what we're asking you to do tonight is to allow us to advertise and seek proposals. But in this, assuming that the bleachers that are in there are adequate, and they may need a little bit of repair and upgrade, but we're going to take some sections, or parts of sections, and move them into the gymnastics building, so they all have some bleachers in there that are retractable and extendable, etc. And it'd be much better than the current seating in there now, which is really minimal. And also with that, the bleachers that come back into the middle school gym will be, we're going to look at the size of the bleachers. In other words, 26-inch versus 30-inch, and the number of rows or steps up in the bleachers, you might say, may be different on the home side and the other side. We'll take that into consideration, because we don't use that in the manner what we used to use it with, overloaded capacity and et cetera. So instructional space, gym floor space, et cetera, is a part of that too. So we will also replace the tile around that wood floor at the same time. Okay? And all that hopefully would, if this package comes together and it comes in on budgeted amounts, we will take care of that project this summer and have it done before school starts next fall. So again, you're not authorizing the expenditure yet, you're authorizing permission to find out what that expenditure might be. And we would advertise and seek proposals if you so agree.
So recommendation of administration is that we advertise and seek proposals for the middle school gymnasium bleachers. So moved by Mrs. Thompson, second by Mr. Moore. Further discussion, certainly a project that needs to be looked at, definitely.
Yep, sure does.
Further discussion, hearing none, all in favor of approval to advertise and seek proposals for the middle school gym project, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Declare the motion is passed. Good news, item number 16.5, Mr. Schaefer.
Yes, it is. This is the addition to the agenda. Item 16.5 gives us opportunity to consider acceptance of the clean diesel bus grant. Mitchell, I believe, told you about this, I think, last month or so, that he had prepared that document and submitted that work. And we were awarded $20,600 to be used for a new bus in budget year 16-17. So it'll be our recommendation that you approve that.
So moved by Mrs. Thompson that we accept the grant. Is there a second? Mr. Nelson?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Nelson would like to spend that money also. So we have a motion and a second. Again, thanks Mr. Brooks for his work on that, to get the grant in. This is, I believe, the second one, because Mrs. Calise had applied previously also and got a grant for us to get one towards the bus. So,
We got pretty much the whole bus that time.
yeah. So we have a motion and a second. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of the acceptance of the clean diesel grant, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Item number 17 is executive session for legal matters, and number 18 is an executive session for personnel. We do not plan to take any action following either one of those, so, yep.
I've got one more administrative thing.
All right.
Sorry.
As long as you're retiring, we'll grant you
Get
that.
absent-minded, you know that. But we've been having some discussion, both administratively and with staff development committee, dealing with curriculum and et cetera. And the two major topics of discussion are still calendar and then placing professional development on that calendar. And of course, we have two that volunteered last month. That would be Charlie and Cammie, who help on that calendar committee. But the professional development is so embedded and entangled in that calendar that we want to try to work ourselves through that project as well before we call you to the end. I would say that you will be contacted in February, but on the table are some general topics. And I really do have to say that even though we have, as a board, approved the start date for next year, that necessarily doesn't have to be chiseled in stone based on the discussions that have taken place there. And so keep that in mind. Also, professional development is a real challenge to all school districts, and how to deliver effective, ongoing, and focused professional development. We have many challenges before us in education in South Dakota, and believe it or not, it isn't all about funding and salaries. We still have to do the very best we can for the educational teaching and learning process that's very involved, and there are extremely high expectations of our teaching staff and administrators to achieve at high levels. And to do that, we have to try to bring along the advancement in professional levels, so to speak, of the teacher's ability to deliver the goods, so to speak, and to teach effectively to all children. And our circumstances of teaching are not what it was when your grandma and grandpa were teaching our kids in school, I'll tell you that. Things have changed so very much and are continuing to change. You heard from Julie Grosser of the LEIC about diversity, and that diversity carries over into the classrooms today. We have families that are challenged in many ways, seemingly more so than what we used to have some 10, even 20 years ago. The first president when they came with the idea that all children will be ready to learn, if you remember, what was his name? President Bush, the first President Bush. When President Bush started talking about that, that was a great theory. And that philosophy of having all kids ready to learn when they came into kindergarten, in theory, is fantastic. Only problem is they didn't put anything behind it. It was just talk. And unfortunately, we hear a little too much talk and not enough action. But the responsibility still remains. The expectation is that we expect our teachers to, in many cases, to be almost superhuman. And so professional development is key to the teachers being able to teach at their very peak and deliver the best for all children. And professional development has got to be part of that calendar. And I'm making a long speech out of something that doesn't have to be a long speech, but it's so very important. So bear with us. We have ranged in discussion from having, for example, some professional development time every week to one day a week every week of the year, to 1 day a week every month or anywhere in between there, to having early releases, to having all days. For example, we have on Martin Luther King Day coming up on January 18th, we have an all-day regional in-service where the teachers will bus them down to West Central, and they will join with hundreds of other staff members from other schools, and they will have cutting-edge opportunity to interact with other teachers and listen to presenters and to present as well. So we're quite excited about that. This is the second or third year that we've done that. I would say that a day like Martin Luther King Day will stay with us in the recommendation that we keep the all day on that day, but I don't know what the other recommendations are going to be yet. So Charlie and Cammie and the rest of the board will bear with us. We don't feel any urgency in getting that back to you, in part because of the negotiations will be later this year, and the fact that you do have a tentative start date already approved, but it could be that we might recommend in that new calendar when it's put together, part of the recommendation might be a different start date. I can't promise that, nor am I speaking for the group. It's just a topic. But I would really like you to ask me questions if you have questions on the calendar or professional development.
No, I'm just curious, I'm glad you're going through it so hard before it's brought to us.
Well, otherwise, Charlie, you'd have been in there numerous hours already. I'm not kidding. We meet twice a month administratively, and I don't know. We've spent probably, and we usually meet from 8:30 till 11, and I bet you we spent at least an hour of the last 2, if not 3 times we've met on that topic.
If the start date did change, do you know if it would go back?
No, it wouldn't. Yeah, it would go back. No, you would.
How do you find back?
Well,
Earlier in August
It
or
wouldn't be
later in
earlier.
August.
It would not be earlier or would be earlier?
Would not be.
Would not be earlier.
No, it wouldn't be early.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I know not to ask questions when you say ask questions. You're
Well,
You're
it's
very
getting longer,
prepared.
I can guarantee you that.
Any question?
Would they still get to have finals before Christmas break?
Perhaps not. That's an issue, I know it is. You see it on TV now, the Sioux Falls school districts are
Really struggling with
experiencing
that.
that, you know.
I think that definitely is a priority to high school teachers.
Yeah, see, that's just it. Adam, if you were here, would be willing to very much discuss that with you, in the fact that it's a different deal between the middle and the elementary compared to the high school. The middle runs on 7 weeks, so they really could care less where it breaks.
And the elementary is just so flexible.
And the elementary. That's right. We are-
Should I comb my hair now too, you know?
But yes, but I mean, and of course, it is impacted in a way by our working in partnership with DSU. Because I just checked the other day, we have 75 students in high school If that's students or if that's courses. But anyhow, our credits, so to speak. But I mean, 75 are, and I'm gonna say students, are taking the option of earning college credit with that are impacted by the start date of Dakota State University.
Or the
Because
other
even
states.
if they're here in school, you know, we have some kids that go to the DSU campus, we have some kids that stay here and get the college credit, and they're called concurrent if they're here. But those teachers are still supposed to follow the schedule of Dakota State College, or Dakota State University. So, and they start, I think, August 23rd.
Second or whatever next year.
Something like that. And I think that's our tentative start date.
I think that's also been brought up with AP coursework, because the AP test happens in late April or early May.
May 2nd.
So, May 2nd, is that what you said?
That first Monday in May.
So, I mean, when that
It's
happens,
weekend.
And that's it, then, you gotta follow that.
that's when the rubber hits the road, and if you're gonna tell me that now you've taken your test, would you please come back for another 5 weeks?
Yep. So, I mean, it's not as simple as it might look from the curb side, so to speak.
Well, we certainly appreciate the effort of the administration to explore those avenues, and I certainly also agree that professional development is a very important thing in today's world of education, because it's changing so rapidly, so.
Well, that's why we're trying to figure out a system whereby we can deliver something that is not only vitally important, but it's focused on topics that we can follow back up with and reinforce in practice and reinforce in practice and that type of thing. It won't be one-shot thing that we don't keep up with. Thanks for letting me add that, sorry.
Further item, all right, then we'll declare ourselves going into executive session.